Welcome back. This is our third recording in a series of four for week 8. Before we get started talking about types of economic systems, I wanted to give you the answer to quiz question 3. We will not be talking about Max Weber today, and I encourage you to read about him and his theories on capitalism in its relation to Protestantism in your textbook. It will be on the exam, so be sure to read it. The answer to quiz question 3 is America. Max Weber traveled to America in the late 1800s in order to study the connection between capitalism and Protestantism. That is the first choice in the quiz questions. Okay. So now we'll talk about types of economic systems. There's Weber. So that's good. You can see that slide. And then we'll talk the rest of the time about types of economic systems. Capitalism and socialism. So we've been talking about capitalism, but now let's talk about specific characteristics of capitalism. A pure capitalist system is based on 3 conditions: private ownership of the means of production, personal profit, and competition. So, private ownership of means of production. People own not just their own personal possessions, but also the capital necessary to produce and distribute goods and services. In a purely capitalist society, there would be no public ownership of any type of profitable activity. Second, pursuit of maximum profit. Individuals are free to seek profits on their own behalf. Seeking individual gain is seen as morally acceptable and socially desirable. This sounds, for us living in a capitalist society, sounds like, well, isn't it always that way? But it's not always that way, as we'll see when we talk about socialism. And then competition. Competition determines what is produced and what price through supply and demand in a capitalist system. The main criticism of capitalism is that it creates inequality because the object is profit, so pursuit of maximum profit, not the betterment of the human condition, as it is in socialism. The U.S. is not a purely capitalist economy. Taxes are raised for federal programs, such as social programs and education. Government interferes with the market through controls, such as the FDA controlling the agricultural industry, and there are other controls as well, such as those on pharmaceuticals and even in our economic system, such as trading. Socialism is an economic system in which the means of production are owned by the people for their collective benefit. There are 5 principles to socialism. It is there's a public ownership of means of production. It's democratic, egalitarian, which means equal, community focus, and planning for community purposes. So for egalitarianism, we'll start there. For some, the goal is absolute equality. For others, it is a limit to inequality, with some acceptable disparities in living standards. A commitment to leveling out gross inequalities in income, property, and opportunities. So you can see this is quite different from what we saw with capitalism, where the problem is in the inequality. Under socialism, with a focus on egalitarianism, the goal is to at least limit inequality, where we don't have any type of limitations like that under capitalism. Community and community for planning for community purposes is where the economy is directed and regulated through the government to perform for the good of the collective. Under capitalism, the economy is there for the good of the individual to pursue maximum profit on their own. Under socialism, the economy is regulated by the government for the good of all of the people, for the good of the community. Obviously, democracy is very important for this goal because we are talking about community planning and purposes. So it's a very democratic, equal, egalitarian system. Lastly is public ownership of means of production. So the people as a collective own basic industries, financial institutions, utilities, transportational systems, and communications. The goal is serving the public, not profit. We can see this most clearly in our health industries. In socialist countries, the health system is there to serve the health of the people, and people do not generally have to pay to be seen by a doctor or to go into the hospital. They pay for that through their taxes. And so without the profit motive, the health industry is very, very different from what we see now. There is quite a bit of criticism of socialism, however, although it sounds so idealistic. It minimizes individual freedom and choice. Large bureaucracies are necessary to manage all of these systems, and they're often inefficient. Taxes are very high in socialist economies. And since you are taken care of in large part, you lack motivation to do better. This is thought to stifle creativity, economic productivity, and striving for excellence. So, while it seems very ideal, it's also thought of as not that ideal. Okay, so for your fourth quiz question, it asks, one of the most important principles of socialism is democracy. It's the third choice, democracy. Okay, that's it for our third one. I told you they were going to be short. So that's it for our third one. We'll pick it up in a minute on the fourth recording, where we will talk about authority and do our fifth quiz question.